So this is going to be a quick start guide to how to play Mothership. I am going to assume you know how to play tabletop RPGs already, so I'm not going to be covering basics of the hobby in general. So Mothership is a D100 system. It's a D100 roll under. So in this case, if you're rolling under the stat, you lose if you hit the number. You have to get under, you lose ties in this game. Now, you do not roll against a set DC. So in things like D&D and Pathfinder, the DM sets the DC, you try to get the target. You're rolling against your sheet. Your sheet has 4 stats on it: strength, speed, intelligence, and combat. Different classes will have different numbers, and you kind of roll them randomly at the beginning. So if you have a strength of 30 and you have to make a strength check, you have to roll 29 or lower. The way criticals work in Mothership is if you succeed, and when you succeed, you roll doubles. So if you need to roll under 30, you roll 22. That's a critical success. If you failed, you rolled above 30 or above, and you rolled doubles. That is a critical failure. So triple zeros is always a crit success. Double nines is always a crit failure. There are 3 saves in Mothership: sanity, fear, and body. Whichever one is most applicable or asked by the GM is the one that you're going to roll. In Mothership, you have skills. There are no such things as skill rolls in Mothership. For example, athletics. If you're trying to jump over a chasm, you're not going to make an athletics check. The way it works is the DM will say, hey, you're jumping over a chasm, make a strength check or a speed check, whichever one they decide is most appropriate. And the player can go, does my athletics apply? If the answer is yes, then you would use a different number. So if you're, let's say strength, your strength is 30, and you have athletics, and let's say athletics adds plus 15, instead of rolling for under 30, you're rolling for under 45. It's kind of on the player to see which skills they think are applicable to which situations. This applies to both skills and to saves. Other than that, it also uses a advantage-disadvantage system, so that is in play in the system as well. Now, if you fail a skill check or a save, you increase your stress by 1. And this means also if you miss in combat, that's a combat check, so if you miss an attack in combat, your stress goes up. Stress does nothing by itself. By default, you start with 2 stress. It maxes out at 20. The only time you really use stress is if you need to make a panic roll. A panic roll is when you roll a d20 and you're trying to roll above your stress level. So the higher your stress gets, the less likely it is that you roll over it. If your stress is ever at 20 and you had to gain more stress, you just subtract points from the most applicable stat or save. So it might be strength that starts going down by 1. Either way, stress does nothing. It is just there for you to try to roll over when a panic check happens. If you fail a panic check, there is a table you roll on to see what happens. Each class has a different method of dealing with panic, and the table's the same for all classes. Let's talk about health. HP and wounds are both part of this game. Let's say you have 10 HP and you can take 2 maximum wounds. If your HP gets from 10 all the way to 0, you go to 1, you take 1 wound and your HP goes all the way back up to 10. If you have 10 HP and you take 15 damage, you go all the way to 0, take a wound, and the remaining 5 comes off of the starting back at 10. So you'd go back down to 5 for your next round. Every time you take a wound, you roll on a wound table to see what happens to your character. If you hit maximum number of wounds, you are dead. If you're dying in this game, the rules say roll a dice, put it under a cup, and when somebody checks, you flip it over to see what happened to you. There is a death table. You just roll the dice when somebody gets there to see if you're dead, unconscious, or whatnot. Let's see. There is also ranges in the game. So ranges are kind of abstract. There's adjacent. I can touch you close, 5, 10, 15 feet. Long range, you can shoot them, and as it says in the rulebook, extreme range, they can hear you screaming. Other than that, there are 2 types of initiative in this game. There was what was used in the playtest and what is being used currently. The current initiative is everybody in the group says what they want to do. The DM says what the enemy is most likely to do, and it's all played out in one big turn. Alternatively, everybody can roll initiative. Whoever beats their speed score goes ahead of the bad guy. Whoever doesn't goes after the bad guy, and you just continue round by round as a normal game. Other than that, in combat, cover is just basically armor. So armor, if you get hit and the damage is less than what the armor's ability is, so the armor can stop 10 damage. If it doesn't deal 10 or more damage, the armor stops all of it, and it continues to stop all of it until it takes the threshold, in which case the armor breaks and then is useless. Cover works the same way. If you're ever in cover in combat and you come out to attack, the rules specifically say you are out of cover until the start of your next turn. So if you use an action to get behind cover, and next time you stand up to attack, you're not considered to be behind cover anymore. And your turn in combat is typically an action and a move. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of loose on the rules. There's not a whole lot of hard and fast rules. They encourage you to think outside of your character sheet. It also encourages the DM to run all monsters as though they are boss monsters, so things will try to murder you, and it is encouraged for the DM to play them highly intelligent and to set up traps for the players. This is a horror survival game. It is not a hack and slash win game. It is closer to Call of Cthulhu and less like D&D. So that is really all you need to know to play a one-shot for Mothership.